Hey everybody, it's Sil, and we're back playing Darkest Dungeon. I'm gonna try not to rant about Metroid Prime this time, because that was weird. I don't know where it came from. It was really weird. Why did I do that? I don't know. Ooh, is that the Necromancer Lord? Oh. Ooh. Oh, what? No. No, not till we have more people there, okay? Alright, I can't. We'll do this medium mission. Listen, I hear you out there scoffing at me. Okay? I understand. I'm a baby back bitch. I understand. The game broke me. I'm scared. I get it. Alright? I understand that I'm not as strong as I once was, and that the people I love are mortal, and it scares me. But you know what? You're just gonna have to let me deal with that on my own, okay? Alright, let's go play this short mission, or this medium mission that's easy. Alright, good. We'll deal with the Necromancer Lord later.
I knew all these paths once. Now they are as twisted as my own ambitions.
I mean, you are also old as fuck. Just slam. Walking along a path. God, this game is so beautiful. So I had an idea for a game. I may have mentioned this in another video. Wait, how many rooms are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We need to go down. I really wish we didn't need to come this way. I guess we didn't need to. We could have looped all the way around, but that would have driven me crazy. So, I was on the computer, and I noticed that there was a sale going on for an online course to teach you how to the basics of creating and programming things into the Unreal Engine. So I picked it up because it was like regular $209 on for $15, and Reddit said that, you know what, if you have absolutely no background in programming, for $20 this is a fantastic stack. But I was like, alright, well, I'm getting it for $5 less than that. And I do know absolutely nothing about programming other than the fact that programming exists. It is on a computer. And there are different, like, I don't even know the word for it, engines that games are made in. Like Unity. Because, I mean, I know Northern Lion is now, you know, done his Unity certification. So I've been watching those, and I've been reinstalling Unreal to my laptop. And I'm not 100. Oh yes, I had an idea for a game. Do I think I'm going to be able to make this game? Probably. Hold on. But I had an idea for a game while I was playing Ziggurat the other day. So I thought of a first-person roguelike. So a game, again, sort of like Ziggurat or The Binding of Isaac, or any other game of that genre, Dead Cells, Rogue Legacy. There's tons of them. Games where there's permadeath, but as you play through the game, you unlock more and more things, so that there's still there's character progression and permadeath. And roguelite maybe would be the correct term. I probably should have used the torch. I mean, I paid money for them. But whatever, I just kind of dumped there. So I had an idea for a first-person game where basically the maps are procedurally generated, so that there are like specific room archetypes, but the actual structure of the dungeon is random every time you play, and you go through many levels of dungeon and beat bosses. Again, you permanently unlock new equipment that you can get in further runs. But what was making it unique, alright, the idea I had was actually came from D&D, from Pathfinder. So in Pathfinder, in the session that happened last week, last Wednesday, so exactly a week ago, one of the characters in our session is a samurai, a dark elf, who was orphaned young and then sort of brought in by a rogue faction in the Dark Elf City, instead of just sort of being left to die. And they started getting power very quickly. So the other Dark Elves, the Dark Elves in power, the noblemen, they basically conspired and wiped them out. And he survived by hiding under the body of one of his collapsed companions. And he just sort of wandered in the Underdark, lost, left for dead. And he was eventually captured by dwarves who found him sort of wandering in their mine. And he was taken captive. And a human samurai, a middle-aged man, a little older than middle-aged, who was working for the dwarves at the time, as sort of just hired. He was sort of like an envoy between a human settlement for trade. He was definitely sort of there to work, basically. He noticed the Dark Elf and asked what the dwarves' plan for him was. More accurate. It's rather rude to refer to him as an ant.
This expedition at least promises success.
They basically said that, you know, well, it was up to, you know, these other people, and he would most likely eventually just be executed. Or just left to rot in their prisons where, you know, they would feed him and water him for life, but, you know, he would just be a slave, a prisoner forever, until he died. And the human wasn't quite satisfied with that. So he offered to take the Dark Elf away from them, basically, under his sort of responsibility. And the dwarves knew this human for a very long time. He was a very skilled soldier, and he wasn't staying around. He was moving on, basically. So they agreed to it. And however, that drow had very poor rolls on his starting money. So once he'd bought his armor and his katana, which were basically must-haves, he didn't have much money left. He wasn't even able to properly get rations for the start of the journey. And trust me, as you've probably already heard, he tried to finagle early pay, getting food away from the barracks, everything he could to save money on it. And that was sort of the guys, now that we're on our 4th session, they're getting back from their first quest, basically. It ended up taking much longer than they intended. It took them about 2.5 days to get to where they originally wanted to go. And then well, things happened, of course, and I'm not going to spoil it, but they ended up taking a lot more time getting back than they originally expected. Some of them gained some scars. There were some pretty huge things that happened, and some things were definitely changed. And so the guys should have just gotten back last Wednesday, unless something really weird happened or they started making really odd choices. They would be back in the city. And so I feel it's fine talking about this because it's already happened. So if Todd hears it, I mean, it's not going to be a spoiler because this should have happened last week. But basically, Todd, because he wasn't able to afford it, doesn't have a wakizashi. He doesn't have that, the second sword that a samurai would have. His soul, where a katana would be his life, the wakizashi would be his soul.
Remind yourself that overconfidence
but he doesn't have one of those. Or a soul. That's a dark elf thing. But racism against races that don't exist. So Wait.
If only
Holy
treasure
shit, that
could
was a lot of
staunch
food.
the flow of otherworldly corruption.
So yeah, but I had been planning to give him a sword. Oh fuck, I just remembered what this tangent was all about. Jesus, I suck. I'm sorry. I'd intend to have this old samurai who rescued him and who sort of views him as a son. Because they sort of have this close relationship. Give him his old wakizashi. Because he's probably never going to adventure again. He's getting on in his years and he's a human. It's probably getting to the point where his old wounds are making it so, you know, it's just painful getting up in the morning, and he still works. He's still a guard on the wall, and he mostly aids in training, specifically teaching the soldiers of the city how to fight on horseback and how to in combat training their mounts, because he's, you know, fucking samurai and he's good at that shit. So that's sort of what he's been doing, and I wanted it so that if they managed to get back from their first adventure, being a certain level or so, I was going to have him, you know, call for the player, and in this very ceremonious, emotional way, give him the sword. And the sword is magic. It's not a crazy high enhancement level, but it has really cool effects,
firelight and uneasy
which
companionship.
I think are really fun. And one of the effects of the sword is that basically, no, that's only for others, is that during the winter months, the sword, for like 4 times a day, for I think it's like 6 hours of the day, can basically have a light spell cast on it, so it becomes this beacon of light
As the light gains purchase,
in the
spirits are
darkness
lifted
because of the winter months,
and
right, where it
purpose
becomes
is
dark
made
early.
clear.
And the sword sort of takes on this. The sword physically changes each season. That's the effect of the sword. It's called Yonki, or 4 seasons. And that's the effect during the winter months. And when I was writing the weapon out, which I actually, when I was designing the weapon in my head, I have to write the
Packs
weapon out
laden with loot
literally
are often
tonight,
low on
because I'm a
supplies.
fucking idiot and forgot to do that. Holy shit, as soon as I'm done this, I'm gonna eat supper and take a shit, and probably while I'm doing the shit, do that. So, the idea for the game, because this was the whole point, was that the dungeon that the game would be set in, the randomly generated dungeon, would be dark. It would be like completely dark. And the only light source the player has would be this sort of magically glowing sword. And so the player could like use items, but it would mean sheathing the sword, which would mean they wouldn't be able to see for the moment they use the item. And it would be really cool for shadows, because as you're swinging the sword and attacking your enemies, you're casting shadows everywhere.
But a victory nonetheless.
And that would be really cool for lighting. And the idea that there'd be like occasional safe rooms that would be just beacons of like pure radiant light in the darkness. And the fact that what was causing the sword to glow would be enemies that were nearby, right? Sort of Sting-esque from Lord of the Rings. And the concept would be is like, once you've killed all the regular enemies of the sword, it would begin glowing towards where the boss was. I mean, if you already discovered the boss room and just sort of ignored it, that's fine, but the sword would tell you where it is. And once all the enemies on the floor were beaten, the sword sort of magically would cool into the ground, and like the floor would grow with this dim light, but the sword itself would go out. And I just had this idea. We want...
The raw strength of youth
we also want that bounty hunter.
his eyes hold
Who do we got? Who do we got that I can get rid of? You.
Suffer not the lame horse, nor the broken man.
That'll be fun. And that was the idea of the game, this first-person sort of action RPG roguelite, where you're running around with a sword and unlocking other things like a bow, bombs, and shields, upgrades to the sword, or spells that you could cast on the sword to temporarily change how the enchantment worked. And you had to choose on the fly what was more important, having the light for what you needed to see, or using the item that you think would let you get through it quicker, and having the skill to know how to line that up. I think it could be a really cool game, and if some random person sees this and goes and makes it without me, I mean, dude, I'm like really poor. That's like really a dick move, okay? Like, you might say, you're poor, you're uploading videos all the time to YouTube, and you can record and have a computer. Yeah, I got the computer for free, and I don't have a job, which is why I'm able to record and throw things on YouTube daily. Like, come on, man. Don't be a dick. Now, if you think that's a cool idea and would like to help with it, or want to program it or buy the idea from me, that's totally different. Hit me up. Alright guys, Sila, have a great day.